Hey, Red, I'm getting set up real quick. It's my first time doing this, so trying to get some kinks worked out. So give me 1 second, I'll get started. Okay. Okay. All right. Hopefully this works. All right. So I know this is kind of weird. So used to doing Instagram Live, so I can't really see what I'm doing. I'm trying to get this set up here. Nope. 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 I can't. This is iPhone fail. I'm trying to get. There we go. All right. So now I can at least see myself and what I look like. All right, so I just want to kick this off. This is just a quick discussion on pricing. I get questions about pricing all the time, like where do I get my pricing from? How do you determine what something's worth? All kinds of things. What I want to talk about really here, I just get this in first. Let me see if this fixes. The, okay. Anyway, okay. Let's get back a little bit. Okay, so this is good. All right, pricing. So first off, I just kind of want to define what pricing is. So pricing essentially determines it's. There's an economist, Thomas Sowell, that I follow and I kind of study. I read his books and everything. Out of all the various economists and stuff, there's a lot of them out there. His seems to be what kind of rings to at least what I believe in, at least how market activities work. So, but I do read the other stuff. It's always good to challenge your own beliefs. But at least historically speaking, the type of economics he talks about is what usually plays out in macro and microeconomics. So, he's a good resource to if you're an economics nerd like me. He's a good resource to study. Um, Enough of that stuff. So, basically, pricing. So, what does it do? So, its main, I guess, really the only thing it really does is it determines where a resource goes and how it's distributed from a high level explanation. Um, and what goes into that is, as a retailer, I want to produce things and sell things for the highest price possible, right? Because I want to make money. That's why I one of the reasons I just say why I do this. But as consumers, which I also am, so I can see this standpoint too, like you want to buy as much for as cheap as possible. So you always have that tug of war between the producers and the consumers, and the pricing is what ends up communicating between the two parties on what something should be sold at. So it's kind of basic, kind of high level. People kind of think pricing can be fixed or controlled, but it can't, because you need the nuances of the market to work itself out to determine what's a price. What the price of something should be, whether it's a comic book or even a specific comic book, or even like food and anything you buy, right? So that's what it does. So, and that all ties into supply and demand, and that's where the theory of supply and demand comes from. Because obviously you got the suppliers, retailers, they want to supply things, and then the consumers, they want to buy things as cheap as possible. Um, so after the consumers or the producers battle each other to see who can grab market share at the right price, and that market share, that's what determines what something costs. And there's a lot of factors that go into that, as far as what the current state of the larger economy is, the macro economy, and also the costs that go into what it costs to produce something. I know a lot of you people, you ask me a lot about like retailer exclusives and pricing and stuff like that. That will be another video. I'll tell you definitely about that. I'm actually kind of excited to tell you about that, because there's a lot of things that I would like to clear up on as far as pricing, because a lot of people think retailers are like price gouging with these exclusives, and we're really not. Like, it's really first off, well, I don't get tuned, but the largest part is a huge gamble. But without going off too far off on a tangent, I'm going to try to go back. So go back to supply and demand. So let's just kind of use let's just use. I'm not going to go into anything specific. I'll just use like kind of the framework that Marvel uses with their ratios, because that's kind of the easiest way to display scarcity, right? Because if something's a 1 in 25, by the print run numbers that the exact scarcity of what a cover is. How many are out there to be consumed, um, or purchased. I guess it would be, I guess, more appropriate lingo. You don't really consume a comic book. You can read it and stuff and consume the story, but it's still there when you're done with it, right? So, so going back on that. So obviously, when I price my ratio variance, I don't typically, and this is especially true before final order cutoff or FOC. I have a pricing framework that I just go off of, and it seems to be pretty well. And I kind of developed it by looking at other successful retailers, because if they're successful, then they must be pricing things correctly, and able to satisfy their markets with those prices. So, and a lot of it is also learned too. So before I started, was an actual like retailer with a wholesaler account. I was your flipper. I'd get things on eBay, and if you hear me talk about the Tuesday flood, and you can tie, that what I said about the Tuesday flood, into the supply and demand theory behind comic book pricing. So, so anyway, lost my spot again. Oh, yeah, okay. So the ratio prices. So basically, the first thing that we have to look at, as retailers go, is how much is the cover A going to cost. So like if it's a $3.99 cover, $4.99 cover, $5.99 cover, that all factors into the cost. The other thing that factors into the cost is the availability. So a lot of times is, and by availability I mean the title, because of the title, the amount of books printed for like a Venom title versus like Squirrel Girl is a huge difference, right? So you're gonna see a lot more ratio variance available for like Venom covers versus Squirrel Girl covers. And the other thing I factor into my pricing is, am I going to be able to sell any of the qualifiers, which are like the cover A's and the variants that go into getting the variant? If I feel like it's a book that's not going to move, then I'm just picking this variant up because, and if you guys like the Peach Momoko books, for some reason she's on fire. Like everybody loves her style, but the titles, like nobody's really buying Fallen Angels 2. Like I've sold like 5 ungraded copies. So when I go to price those books, I got to factor those things in. So that's what all goes into it. And what my prices are, and those are actually considered retail pricing, right? So as a retailer, that's what I price them at. Don't confuse that with aftermarket pricing. Aftermarket or secondary market pricing is totally different from what retailers charge, because most retailers will charge based on their cost of the book and not the secondary market. There are times where I do adjust my prices somewhat if a book takes off, but the reason I do that is mostly because it's the way that it creates less work for me to take the meat off of the bones for anyone trying to flip it. So while it's still going to be under, it's going to be a little bit over my standard retail pricing, it's still going to be way under the market, or not way under, but a significant amount under the market cost, secondary market cost. So that's just some, how I, as a retailer, factor things in. So if I got a standard, say it's like I don't know. Oh, another huge deal too is it the largest ratio? So like if you're looking at a book that has like a 1 in 10, a 1 in 25, a 1 in 50, and a 1 in 100, I'm going to charge less for the 1 in 25 because it's not going to be the scarcest. Going to be the scarcest cover on the book, unless for some reason the book blows up. As far as a good example of this is the Absolute Carnage Immortal Hulk 1 Codex variant, the Del Keown variant. That one was actually, I don't think that was, I can't remember. I don't know if that was the largest. I don't know if there's a 1 in 100. I think there was of that. I think there was a virgin cover of that. So I think that was one of those instances where it wasn't the highest ratio, but it's still like the most valuable books, just because the artwork created a demand that raised the prices of that book. So that's always important to remember, because in the end, you got to have demand. If you have the supply, even if it's scarce, even if it's 3 books, if nobody wants the 3 books, they're not going to sell it. You got to have demand, and that's where marketing comes in. That's where like Social media comes in. Johnny Cates is the best hype man for his own stories. I don't know if you guys follow him on Twitters, but he does a really good job of creating demand for his books, especially how he's been kind of like stringing along the reveal of who or what Dylan really is. That's been going on for like, I don't know. It seems like the beginning of this year. Since people started talking about it. So those are all kinds of factors that go into the demand aspect. So basically, to create demand, you have to grab people's attention. And then some people are better than that. Some advertisers or other companies are better than others in that. And that's eventually what's going to end up, creating or causing value increases is if it gains larger than normal attention. Case in point, we all remember Batman Damned One, the Batwang. That book was like not even like it was kind of like people were watching it because it was the launch of the DC Black Label. But then once the book, and that was and people that was just within the comic community, right? That's just me and you. But the story of the Batwing hit the mainstream media, and as soon as it did, boom, the prices just went through the roof. I think we all know what happened. And then now, if you look at prices, the same bubble popped because all those other people that were involved in the market at first, just finding them on eBay because they knew that's where they could find it, have all got their copies and they have left. While there's, the comic community, we still bought up a lot of them, but the attention is just not there anymore. We've moved on to other things, and that's what creates all these, like, I call them mini bubbles. And people every week lose a lot of money with those. And so that's one of the reasons why I like to try to, distribute this information. If you're following me on Instagram or Facebook, I've been talking about this for a while. These mini bubbles. Now, I don't think it's going to cause like a crash of anything from like the 90s or anything like that, but it's definitely going to discourage people from buying books, and especially as the prices of these books just kind of creep on up. So just checking. I got 4 people on here, so that's pretty good. Usually I get a little bit more on my Instagram, but we'll get there. But anyways, I just want to open this up. I don't know if I got 5 people now. If you guys got any questions for me about pricing, like what do you think something might be causing something, or as far as on ratios, or even exclusives or things like that. I know we're behind here a couple of seconds, so I'll just stare at my screen here. Let me see who's on here. Yeah. No questions. Okay. This might be a quick one. Yeah, so I am going to wrap it up then, but anyways, I may just go ahead and jump on Instagram Live and do another quick one. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all later.